Welcome to the Alpha Warrior Show. We're excited to share diverse perspectives and expert insights with you. Please note that the views and information expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Alpha Warrior Show, its management, or our partners. Each of our affiliates and sponsors and partnerships is a separate entity, and their opinions are their own. Today's content is provided for information and educational purposes and should not be taken as specific advice, whether it be financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your specific situation. We provide all information as is and encourage you to consult with a professional advisor to address your specific individual needs. Your use of any information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By listening further, you agree to identify and protect the Alpha Warrior Show and its associates from any claims or damages arising from your use of this broadcast content. Changes to this disclaimer may be made at any time and will be done effectively immediately upon posting or broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you find the episode both informative and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised.
Are you worried about the effects that higher inflation rates will have on your investments? Are you trying to secure your retirement savings against losses, but you notice that inflation is a hot topic these days? But how dangerous are low inflation rates on your retirement savings? An inflation rate of 2% may not seem like much, but it means that prices will just about quintuple over the lifetime of the average American. And 4% average inflation rate means that something that costs $1 when they're born will cost $23 when they die. That demonstrates the danger of even low inflation rates. So when it comes to gold and inflation rates, many investors want to know whether inflation rates have an effect on gold prices. What history indicates is that over the long term, increased inflation should lead to correspondingly higher gold prices. From September 1971 to August 2020, gold grew 7.5 times as much as inflation. Not only can an investment in physical gold help protect your assets against the damage done by inflation, it can also help grow the value of your retirement portfolio over the long term. If you're looking to protect your retirement assets, why wait until stock markets crash and gold begins to rise in price?
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.
All right, you guys, so remember, support the people who support this show. That's alphalightschool.com. Mr. Mike Lindell, my store, My Pillow, promo code Alpha works at both of those. Returning guests and friend Jake Lang. How are you doing, brother?
Alpha, my man, God bless you. Thank you for having me on, dude. It's good to hear a familiar voice after emerging from 36 days of solitary confinement, where you get used to hearing the voice of God, but not many other human beings you know. So it's good to hear you, brother.
I appreciate that, man. I'll tell you, man, I don't know how you or any of the other J6 defendants can tolerate, the solitary confinement. I was in there in a blink of an eye compared to your guys' stay, and I thought it was absolutely torture. I mean, that thing felt like it was the size of a freaking closet. How do you deal with being in solitary confinement for that long, man?
Well, I mean, one of the scariest parts about being a human being, which we've learned in some, other historical turning points like the Holocaust, is human beings can really get used to almost any conditions and even thrive in them by God's grace, but obviously not in Holocaust conditions. There's no real thriving there. But you spiritually, when we are weak, God is strong in us. And the Bible teaches us that principle. And John the Baptist said it perfectly. He said, I must decrease, he must increase. And, it's through that understanding, knowing that maybe when we get knocked out of the ball game, because I like to be very involved in the operation of my organizations, in the operation of the public perception of January 6th, and doing the interviews and making sure that, people don't forget about us and the whole entire 9 yards. It's a very intricate process to continuously push for our freedom and to raise money and to distribute that money and to run the blessednewstv.com organization and all the things that I do. By God's grace, I like to be heavily involved. But when you get knocked out of your involvement, when temporarily the reins of control are taken from you, I have a great team and things put in place for when those situations occur, because they've occurred literally dozens of times as the government's tried to stifle my voice and to take it away, the organizational leadership aspect of January 6th. But when you get knocked out of the game like that, you realize that truly your life and the things around you, your family, your friends, your organizations, everything, your movement is in God's hands. And so you learn a deeper sense of trust. You kind of hand things over to him, and your prayer life, obviously you're just praying every day, Lord, make sure that your commissary funds continuously come in and they're distributed well, and the family members that are used to reaching out directly to me for help, that my brother Huang and my fiance Rachel and the people that I have established around me are available, and we're consistently fulfilling the requests of the community. You just pray over things, and that God's going to handle them, and that because he's given us a great community and a core structure, that things are going to happen. And they did happen, and everything went well while I was gone. And in fact, a huge campaign sprung up. My father and Coy Griffin and about 12 to 24 other protesters showed up outside Brooklyn Federal Prison, and Coy brought his horse all the way from Arizona. So we made New York Times and dozens of other publications and stuff, and we really put some pressure back on this prison. And within just a few days after that, I was released from solitary confinement. So, you get knocked out of the ball game personally, but you see, you understand the feeling of knowing that your dad's outside the prison you're on horseback, or Coy is, and my dad was out there with his Harley. But just to know that feeling in your heart that even when your hands have been tied behind your back, that you have people out there that support you, and the community is not going away silent into the night. And God is stirring people's hearts all around you to fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. Is it such an incredible feeling of, like, I don't know, unity and vindication and courage. I mean, I love it because I know that no matter what, the fight goes on. And so it was interesting time up there, but those are some of the key takeaways. I was grateful the entire time. I remained grateful.
How you have the ability to have such a positive mindset in what I would say is one of the worst and most horrific scenarios to be in, it just baffles me, man. And it truly shows the power of faith and the power of patriotism, and extremely how powerful when you have both of those things. One question I want to ask you as well before we get into some of these other more technical questions, aside from your family, the people you care about, what's the one thing you miss most right now, man, being stuck inside those walls?
Well, I guess it also goes into family, is that my spiritual family, being able to freely practice, going to church and community organizing, going to, hand out the food, my local church to the community and stuff like that, just being around um, the people that I like to worship God around, and doing little small activities with them. It was an much older church community. Everyone was like over 60 years old, and I was like the one young man there. And so I'd go to, their houses, or, just be like the handyman, help them move stuff, and, just doing stuff to help my community and be around my church and whatnot. I really miss that. It's wholesome. Um, I didn't really have much else to, I just left New York City nightlife throughout 2020 COVID, and, everyone's lives basically just careened into nothingness in New York City. We couldn't even go to a restaurant without some type of New World Order green pass or vaccine pass and stuff. So the life I rebuilt in Christ was centered around service and being around my church community. These are things that are important to me. Serving the less fortunate and God's people um, is something that He's put in my heart that actually gives me the greatest sense of fulfillment, a driven purpose in my life. And so, other than obviously having nice dinners with my family and relaxing, during those off times with those who I love and who have supported me my whole life, um, God put it in my heart to start to offer, that sense of family, loving care and support to other people. So I miss that, of being able to freely exercise service is something when you get it taken away from you, and that's kind of been the driving force behind my, fight for the January Sixers, and the financial burden that is placed upon all of the prisoners and the persecuted individuals, even at home. And so the fight still goes on, even if you know, I haven't been able to physically be there. I've tried to spiritually and financially be there for those who I love and who are being, absolutely persecuted by this tyrannical Marxist regime.
Well, the other thing that's a true testament to yourself and those around you is, I would say the unfortunate norm is that when people find themselves in a predicament like yours or like mine, people usually go into self-preservation mode. What can I do to make sure I'm okay? But you didn't, and the team around you didn't. You came up with j6truth.org, and we'll talk more about that at the end. And you're constantly in the fight for these other J6ers, and I mean America in general, but specifically the J6ers. And to me, that's always shows a person's character, that even when the noose has been tightened against them, they continue in the mission to fight for other people. And you guys have never slowed down. And on top of that, you did what is another crazy brave move, but you have had your final bond hearing, and you argued yourself or you argued for yourself on that one. Can you give us a little insight on how that happened or what unfolded?
Yeah, of course. And first of all, I'd like to say that I don't want to come off as like some kind of outlier or special. There are many Jan Sixers who share the same resolve and the same spirit, who fight and who try to give back and try to do their best to just not be completely submitted by the government. And whatever way that they fight is their fight. And my fight is my fight. We all fight together, and it's through this community that we're made all this headway that we have. And so this is truly a special community that is just unrelentless. And so I fit right in. It's nice. And speaking about unrelentless, this court hearing that I had on Thursday, was it May 23rd, was an absolute relentless battle. It was one of the first times I often speak in my own court proceedings. My lawyer, Steve Metcalf, and my other attorney now, Anthony Sabatini, have welcomed me as a part of the legal team. And in fact, I've asserted that right of mine to be able to assist in my own defense. And we have a pending hybrid representation motion before the court that basically has been granted by the way that the court went on Thursday. I spoke for a large majority and made legal arguments back and forth between the prosecutors, the George Soros prosecutors, and myself. And so hybrid representation basically makes it so I'm like first chair. I am like my first attorney, but I'm also still being represented. So I have kind of like a good mix of the best of both worlds. When it comes time for my trial in September, I will have the ability to give my own opening and closing arguments. I will have the ability to cross-examine the witnesses that the government's bringing. So, and then I'll also be able to yield and say, hey, Steve, I think this witness is ripe for your dismantling. And so it's going to be a good dynamic. We're developing the strategies now. And so Thursday was a huge testimony to this strategy because we lacerated and completely just step by step we undressed them. We totally undressed them in the courtroom. All the lies they've been saying, the 40 months that I've been through of constant moving and shuffling me around, not having access to my discovery, not being able to be in a proper environment to prepare for such a strenuous legal battle. The government constantly taking my legal notes and my legal discovery whenever I get shifted to a new facility and everything disappearing. And so I just laid down an indictment on them on how unconstitutional this is. And I even put the judge on warning. I said, Your Honor, the way things are going, in the best interest of justice, not here to fight against a prosecutor, to fight against you, but just from a third party's objective perspective one day, they will look at how I've been treated and my lack of fundamental constitutional rights, being able to prepare for my own trial, and they will say this was a mistrial before it even started, and on appeal, this whole entire case might get thrown out just because we, the people, all of us here that are involved in this administration of justice, can't even get it right. I said, this is a black eye on the judicial system.
Yep.
I need to have my full exculpatory evidence. The government's not provided for me. I told him, I said, look, in the DC jail gulag, we had 40 Gen Sixers. We had, at any given time, 20, 30 of us that have different pieces of our discovery, a couple gigabytes here on a hard drive. This guy will have a couple different scenes here. I said, I've seen for years videos of me in other people's discovery that I don't have in my own discovery. I said, this is ridiculous. I said, because we all share. We're all in this J6 movement and we're all in the pod together in DC jail. And so sometimes somebody will have a laptop and they'll be sitting down watching video, be like, hey man, can I sit beside you, take some notes and stuff? And so I'm watching people's videos for years, videos of me defending my own life, trying to assist other people that are knocked down onto the ground or defend them in a situation where they needed a helping hand or a good strong patriot to give them some tyrannical pushback. And I've never had those videos of my discovery. So anyway, I told the judge, I said, look, there's dozens of videos I've seen in other people's discovery of me that I don't have access to. That's not right. I shouldn't have to literally scrap and claw and puzzle piece together my discovery from other defendants. That's ridiculous. And I've been shifted 15 times to different prisons, and every single time you lose everything, all your legal documents, your discovery, any notes you took. And so I said, we're in a David versus Goliath scenario where David has both hands tied behind his back. I said, look, the full weight of the United States government, the U.S. Attorney's Office, 51 field offices of the FBI are all working in conjunction in a well-oiled machine against me with a biased jury pool, with the most biased jury pool on earth. And I can't even have full access to the evidence that I need just to mount a defense, a measly little defense against this monstrosity that you guys have created against me. And so I said, it's like playing poker with the other guy standing behind your back, looking at what card you have. I mean, I said, you got to give me my fighting chance at my freedom. And so the judge at the end of the hearing, he normally a bond hearing only lasts 20 minutes, in arguments. You say your piece of me because we put in a written motion, and then we just have a little bit of oral arguments. This was 2 hours of back and forth, high intensity drama. And so one day, I'm going to get my my legal team to release the transcription from that. And I'm praying that God puts it on his heart to make the right decision, because he said at the end of the hearing he's going to take all the things into consideration, and he'll be making a written decision on my bond here in the near future. So we're waiting on God right now and praying through this, brother.
I mean, wow. First of all, 2 hours when it's normally 20 minutes. The prayers are there that this judge's heart is pushed in, and not even in a direction that favors you, just in a direction that represents what the law is supposed to be, which is fairness and justice and the truth. Like, this is, for a lot of people think, well, the J6ers are, they're asking for favors. No, they're not. They're asking for the law to be done the correct way. That's the insanity of all these different stories. You say 40 months, and I want to make sure to put that into perspective for people. We're talking over 1,200 days. Like, that's how long that Jake's been in custody. This is how long they've been continuing with the pretrial detainment, which, and for those that don't know, pretrial detainment, especially in a situation like this, it's supposed to be considered for like the most extreme cases, which is not this situation here at all. So I hope people swallow the perspective of what's really going on here. The other thing I wanted, go ahead, brother.
And Alpha, I wanted to address something in the community that keeps going around, and I'm going to address it quickly because it's a very nuanced and intricate legal issue. The fact of why I haven't gone to trial. And you brought it up in the breakout that we were talking before we even started when I called you. And you said, how can I go to trial? You know this, you understand this yourself, without all the evidence. Yep. Mike Johnson, we've been waiting. So the January 6ers have a legal right to all evidence that could be used either for or against them, so that we can make a robust legal defense. By a hand of God, not by the Department of Justice, but by another branch of our government, 15,000 hours, or I think 12,000 hours out of 40,000 has been released. First of all, that's not even 1/3. And second of all, how can all these other January 6ers cases be adjudicated already? I can go back to my stuff, but 900 or 1,000 of my brothers have taken either plea deals or gone to trial without access to full discovery that we're still waiting for Congress to give us. It's not even their job to give it to us, but they're trying a little bit. I mean, Mike Johnson could have just rolled it all out on day one when he took, office of speakership, but he didn't. So, God move on his heart. But I'm still saying, the very first aspect of my ability to go to trial is that I need to be able to prepare a full featured case and have everything, all the evidence. Why do I have to wait for Congress to give me this evidence? It's in the hands of the Department of Justice. It's owed to me.
Well, and one, I'm going to comment to that, and then I'll answer your question. Is first, you as the defendant are supposed to have that information before anybody else, even Congress. Like that is your
even before Tucker Carlson. Why are you giving the? I mean, God bless Tucker.
Thank Tucker for what he's attempting to do. I think he still needs to do more, a lot more, but at least he's skimming the surface. But constitutionally, you should definitely be getting that information before the media and definitely before Congress. But to answer the why, and I know this because, and like you said, when we talked about it, is not only is discovery important because of exculpatory information, but discovery also shows you corruption. It shows you the things that they don't want no one else to know, because if people see this, people are going to be like, well, then if you did this and you're lying about this, what else are you lying to? And it destroys their credibility. And in a courtroom, credibility is supposed to be the most important thing. It's why we take an oath. And if you lie under oath, it's considered perjury. But to the question of why have so many cases been adjudicated without all this being there, it's because you're talking about abuse of power. That's what's transpiring here. You're having, and you talked about it earlier on, the weight of the government, the weight of the Department of Justice, the weight of even the media, because we see how much the government controls media. An endless checkbook, endless resources. Meanwhile, like you said, David and Goliath fight where David has his hands tied behind the back, and then you present David with the offer of, all this is stacked against you. You've seen how we've made your ability to have mount your own defense nearly impossible. But guess what? Now we're going to make you an offer. Either say you're guilty and be out in a year, 2 or 3, maybe get probation, or fight everything we just addressed and lose the next 10, 15, 20 years of your life. And for a lot of, especially the older J6ers, that's a life sentence. And when people have already lost their homes, they've already lost their savings, their relationships have ended, their children have turned their back on them, a large portion of the government's turned their back on them, and now you want them to mount that kind of fight. It is an abuse of the police system in this country. And that is something that legislatively needs to be corrected, because, yes, it's an eye opener for a lot of people surrounding J6, but it also means that how long has this been going on, and to how many people has this been happening? But, this part really gets to me. And that's why, I wanted to go on that rant about that, Jake, because to expect somebody to go to trial with nothing that the defense has, what they're supposed to have to, mount a defense, that to me, that's insanity. To expect you or anyone to do that is freaking insanity, man.
And it crushes me in the most deepest part of me that hundreds and hundreds of Jan 6ers have been strong-armed into plea deals, and even my brothers have gone to trial without the full evidence that they can make the best defense. And I believe that the second that Mike Johnson released the January 6th footage, some of it, there should have been court motions from all these other defendants, all these other Jan 6ers that have either taken a plea deal or gone to trial and been found guilty, and said, this is an immediate mistrial, a Brady violation, which is what it's called when the government told evidence from you. We didn't have access to that. If you found one video of yourself in the Mike Johnson release, 12,000 hours, that showed something to your benefit, or even against you, that is a Brady violation, and it should automatically, that's called a due process violation. A motion to dismiss is what you file. And these are things that happen in every other criminal case across the country. Let's say you robbed the gas station, God forbid, you're some type of career criminal, but in other camera footage angles showed coming out, and you didn't actually have a gun on you. They said you had a gun. You got convicted of having a gun. You had like a piece of wood, carved to make it look like a gun. And another camera angle came out that the government had access to, that they withheld from you, came out, and you're already like a year or two to your prison sentence, and then your lawyer stumbled upon this, and he filed a motion, a due process violation, a Brady violation material motion, that they did not provide you that evidence. Your case would be dismissed immediately, boom, because you had your due process violated, your constitutional right. And so where is that happening? I don't know why the legal teams aren't doing it. I've been advocating for it, but this is the reason why I haven't been able to go to trial. Number one, there's many other reasons, but I'll go quickly. Number two, my case, 1512 obstruction of Congress, that my legal team was fortunate enough to have the resources, Norm Pattis and Steve Metcalf, when I got the charge drops from my judge, and then the government appealed it, and the appellate court put the charge back on top of me. We were the first ones to file it in Supreme Court. And then Miller and Fisher filed in alongside us, and Fisher's filing got picked up by Supreme Court. It was a huge win. I mean, amazing job by the J6 community. It's actually a three-way effort. Miller was the first one to get the charge dropped. I was the one to push it up to Supreme Court, and Fisher was the one that got the case picked up. So it was like this awesome team effort by the community. And that one charge, which is a 20-year maximum felony, is being argued. It was argued April 15th in Supreme Court, and it'll be decided probably mid-June. That has been holding up my case for about a year and a half. And so you have these two things put together, plus the third, which nobody realizes. I was about to go to trial this past October 2023. And 1 month before my trial, actually 3 weeks before my trial, my star witness, my best friend, a brother that we all know and love, was arrested in a preemptive retaliatory attack on my trial. Philip Anderson, the man who credits with me with saving his life, which was caught on camera, was arrested 3 weeks before my trial started in an act of government witness tampering, in an act of government witness intimidation, to try to make it so I took a last-minute plea deal, or basically I got my entire, because it's one of the cruxes of my my case against the government. I was there saving lives. I was there defending my life. I was there defending my country. And they tried to make it so my star witness, Philip Anderson, was arrested and intimidated into basically saying, if you testify at Lang's trial, things are going to happen a lot differently for you. You're going to get indicted, re-indicted, and, keep on getting more superseding indictments with more charges. If but if you play ball with us, you'll be out of here. You'll be out of our hair very quickly. And so that was those three reasons compounded together. And the fourth being they're afraid of my testimony of the death and the murder of Roseanne Boylan. And Philip Anderson's testimony, for that matter. He was holding her hand as she died. I was trying to save her life as she literally, the Holy Ghost left her. Father God called her home, in the minutes where we were struggling to resuscitate her. Me and other January 6th, I didn't personally try to resuscitate her. I just was trying to get her out of the tunnel. I was like one of the first people, pulling and yanking on her, trying to move her out of the tunnel. And the fourth reason is that testimony, that they covered up a murder. They said that she died from a methamphetamine overdose and not from police brutality and blunt force trauma and asphyxiation via chemical spraying all over. She was doused, completely soaking wet in CS gas and tear gas and pepper spray. And she succumbed to a combination of her injuries. And, those four reasons, which is, now the cat's out of the bag. So all of these people that are January 6th, supposedly supporters that are sitting there trying to spike the football our own community and trying to allege that I'm purposely postponing my own trial, there you go. Now you have the full understanding of why I've been incarcerated, this long and not been able to go to trial, is for those four reasons. And I believe that, they're sufficient enough.
And, I want to remind everybody, you know, and Jaco, you did an interview with him recently, and he's another friend of mine that people see. Got to remember, this is not just a Jake Lang story. This is not just a J6 story. And what I mean by that is Michael Jaco asks a very important question, and I'll read it. He says, how can we have a fair election when we have a gulag in DC full of J6 political prisoners? I mean, think about that, Jake. Like, what is the emotional or psychological impact on people who may want to say something, may want to vote some way, but are like, hey, how is this going to come bite me in the future if this tyrannical government is still in place? I mean, that is, we're talking about America, but we're not talking about Cuba. We're not talking about Venezuela. I mean, this is America, and we have to have that concern. And if that question alone doesn't spark thought and an understanding of why people should understand the 4 reasons you gave, George B. Easy posted a few days ago, if you don't think that this is a 2-tier justice system in this country, the state of Connecticut just freed an illegal alien who had already been convicted of killing 2 kids. And it goes back to a DUI story where this man killed an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And then ICE detains this guy who's in our country illegally, but our government just lets him go. Meanwhile, we have Americans like you who, are having to fight a 2-hour bond hearing just, to fight for themselves. Like, it's, how the law is important to me, man. A third of my life, almost half of my life was dedicated to it. To see it tarnish the way it is right now it's heartbreaking. And I know the psychological impact these things have. We have people that are afraid to read certain parts of the Constitution, Jake, because they're going to be like, I'm going to be labeled a domestic terrorist. I mean, it doesn't get any more tyrannical than that. It seems like people are waiting for the other shoe to fall. And I'm like, look,
we have a Second Amendment right to form militias. Let me just say it.
And it's the truth. It's the truth. It's in the
truth. And it shouldn't be whispered. It should be, the truth deserves to be yelled from the mountaintops.
The Constitution tells us what to do when a government becomes tyrannical, and it's to remove that government. Those are the words that our forefathers put in the document. And the fact that the current regime wants to label our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, as an extremist document, I mean, they're making the argument for me of what this country has come to. You have a trial.
To touch on the Michael J. I was just on Michael Jaco's show a couple days ago, and he posed that same question, and it's extremely true. I pray that in the average American's heart that they see, the Gen 6 political prisoners, and they mount up like an army of the Lord, and they go out and they vote with patriotic fervor against this. But the key fact of the matter is, not all people are built like that. Many people with careers and young families and, things in their heart that they don't, personally want to lose, are thinking for themselves when they go to the voting booth, or which political candidate to support. Hey, look what happened to the Donald Trump supporters in 2020. 1,500 of them have been persecuted by the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice, the Department of Injustice. I can't personally risk that right now, so I'm going to vote, safe. And that's voting out of fear. That is fear tactics. That's extortion of the mind of the American people. And that's the type of political environment the Democrats have created here in this country. And the political discourse has grown so toxic and so fear-based and about destroying and crushing the enemy and his opinion that this is where we're living right now. People are going to the voting booth not thinking about who's going to be the best leader to give me a good economy, who's going to, respect the Constitution Constitution and make sure that we're living in a free society, they're thinking, if I vote for Trump, I may be put on a list and one day persecuted and thrown in prison for it. And that is the key facet of Michael Jaco's question. Until the Jan 6ers are released and people feel the ability to vote how they want is not going to be later on targeted by this government and by any government, even if, Democrats shouldn't feel that if they vote Democrat, then when a Republican administration comes in, that they will be targeted for harassment and imprisonment either. And the Republicans haven't shown that they're willing to do that. God willing, they never do. That's why I'm not a fan of this retribution talk, because we need the American citizen to feel free to vote how they want to vote without further injustice or tyrannical imposement on their free will. And so, let's make sure, if you're out there listening to my voice, if you vote for Trump, God willing, you won't be put on a watch list. You won't be harassed later, but you cannot let your decision be made out of fear.
100%. Yeah, America was founded on courage, not fear, and people have to remember that. July 4th is it's not the not so distant future. We're a month and a half, less than a month and a half, or right around a month and a half, maybe. I got Marine Corps math going on from Independence Day, and I just want to read a sentence. This is from the Declaration of Independence, and it's in that paragraph that starts with the famous words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident," and it says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. These are not my words. These aren't conspiracy words. These are the words of our forefathers. These are the words of the founding documents of the United States of America from our Independence Day. And for people to be afraid to say that tells you what kind of government we live under. And right now, Americans like yourself are trying to use the legal process. We're trying to have the system self-correct itself, steer the ship in the right direction so that these kind of extremes don't take place. But the government doesn't even want to do the simple things of allowing an American like yourself just to mount an honest defense and just to have your constitutional right to discovery. This is the uphill battle. We'll start wrapping it up here, Jake. One thing I do want to talk about is you have a trial date that's coming up in September. What can you tell us about that?
Well, and by God's grace, I want to make it a public spectacle. This is just going to be, a month or two out before the presidential election. And we want to make sure that the full understanding of two-tier justice and political persecution of everyday American citizens like myself, entrepreneur from New York City, a young man, I was a college wrestler. I went through a period of living in sin in New York City nightlife, but I always, did the things that Americans are supposed to do, work hard and provide for those around me. And I found Christ, and now being persecuted. And my story could be one of any other person's son or daughter out there that is going to the voting booth that was wayward and came back to God and is trying to live a life that respects His will and listens to the Holy Spirit. And when you see me on trial, and when you see the prosecutorial misconduct and the overzealous actions of the judges and the prosecutors in D.C., remember when you go to the voting booth, what's happening to me could happen to your son or daughter out there. And it would be a horrible, horrible day to ever have to go into the courtroom and see your son or daughter or your brother or sister have to put up a fight for their lives, where a decade to 2 decades, I'm facing legitimately, if I'm convicted, 10 to 20 years in prison. And this is a fight for my life, and I want it to become a fight the American people can relate to and push back against when it comes time for the election day in November. And so September 9th, 2024, be there, be square. Let's pack the courtroom. Let's get all the media and people we can, and let's make this a public trial, not one of these ones behind closed door where there's, 4 or 5 members of MSNBC and Ryan Riley and all of the quack reporters for the liberals there. Let's make this a show of force for the patriots, that we will not go silently into the night.
The most important courtroom right now is that court of public opinion, and they know it, and it's why they try to maintain control of the information that's out there in circulation. In a time where our government is persecuting a former president, in a time where our government is arresting and trying to send the attorney of a president, Christina Bobb, to jail for the rest of her life. I mean, it kind of says enough about what's going on in this country. Jake, before we hang this up, man, you have sponsor j6.com, you have j6truth.org. You want to tell us a little bit about those for people that are like, hey, I want to get in this fight, I want to help support, I want to volunteer. What can you tell us about these sites?
Awesome. Yeah, first of all, if God put that on your heart, you're a patriot and you're a hero, and we love you. I've got my back against the wall. I've got to fight. But those who decide to volunteer and to support and come in alongside us, you're not forced to do it. And so the greater grace is yours. Thank you. j6truth.org is like our umbrella organization above the commissary funds we run, the legal fund we run, and the emergency family funds, and everything we do for the J6 community. That's pretty much one of the pillars of our organizations in the J6 community. So if you go to j6truth.org, you can get plugged into our documentaries. You can see our different fundraisers. You can kind of get a crash course in what this political imprisonment has been like. And so please go and do your research. And the most important thing right now financially to support a January 6er is become a monthly commissary sponsor. We need that money coming in monthly because it helps us be able to understand, if we have 300 Jan 6ers in prison and each one of them needs $100 a month or more in commissary, and we have a certain amount of money coming in from commissary a month, how we can distribute it. And so please go to sponsorj6.com and become a monthly commissary sponsor. It makes a world of difference for us, and we appreciate you. We got knocked out of the game, like I've said a few times here. Most of us were the breadwinners for our families, young wives and kids at home. They're struggling to even put food on their own table now that daddy's in prison and being tortured by the Biden regime. And so on top of that, these mothers and wives need to provide for the man in prison too. And so it's a double whammy. And so to, basically combat that collateral damage effect that the families are struggling, it's your job, the American people, to come support the Jan 6 Patriots now. And so let's do what we can do to becoming a stronger community here. Please, by the love of God, go to sponsorj6.com. It makes a world of difference for me and the Jan 6ers. God bless you, Alpha. You're one of my closest brothers in this movement. And I appreciate your platform, man. You don't have to do this, but you do it. And keep the fight up, man. I know you're going through your own stuff, and this is for you and for all the other patriots out there that are going through their own battles. I've said this time and time again. If God's given me the spirit to fight relentlessly in my limited capacities in here and to make a difference, imagine what he can do with you. And I know he can do it because he's done it, and he'll continue to do it. His word is true. He will part the Red Sea. He will open up the prison doors. He will shake loose the chains on this country and on your personal life. Trust in him, lean on him, trust in God, lean not on your own understanding, and he will make your paths clear. He will fill in the valleys and lay low the mountains, and you will see the salvation of the Lord in the name of Jesus. Be blessed out there, my friends. I love you. This is Jake Lang signing off from the Gulag.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, political prisoner Jake Lang. Sponsor j6.com, j6truth.org, and we'll be back right after this commercial.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a January 6th political prisoner rotting away in horrible conditions? January 6th patriots are subject to cruel and unusual punishment every day and kept imprisoned for nearly 3 years without trial. These American heroes have to survive inhumane conditions where they lack basic food nutrients, clothing, and hygiene. Joe Biden's corrupt Department of Justice and FBI Gestapo has been making sure the families of these brave patriots are suffering as well. The breadwinner has been ripped out of the home, and these young families are being extorted thousands of dollars a year to keep up with commissary costs for their J6 prisoner. Many families have been completely devastated, missed mortgage payments, and kicked out of their homes, and even the family car repossessed. The ongoing battle these families face to stay afloat and support their loved ones in prison is in desperate need of our help. You can now sponsor a January 6th family to help support them in their greatest time of need. SponsorJ6.com is a new organization started by January 6th political prisoner for 965 days, Jake Lang, ensuring 100% of funds made go to Patriots commissary accounts. By becoming a sponsor of a J6 family, you can ensure one of the nearly 200 currently incarcerated J6 prisoners is properly clothed and fed. Sign up today to give the vital help these families need and make a real impact in the lives of our POWs. Head to SponsorJ6.com and support our patriots.
Sponsor G.
President's former National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleading guilty today to lying to the FBI.
Flynn knew exactly how the system worked. He knew exactly what the intel world had been up to. He understood its funding. They had to get rid of Flynn.
There was a moment where I just felt like I was drowning. And so I'm in there with these other political appointees. They're all supposed to go in there and tell what they believe to be the truth. What they did was they took my assessment and they wanted me to change it. And I was like, I'm not changing it.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
President Obama said, but I do have one specific recommendation. Stay away from Michael Flynn. He's bad news.
Over time, instead of being pounded down below the surface of the ocean, we started to fight. I'm now above the surface.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem-solution, one-product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.